Hi everybody, welcome to the already fourth episode of the Marketing Automation Conversation series. And today I have a very special guest for you, Bart Van Proeyen. He's a founder of Kwarts, and Bart, we go back 2 years I think now.
Yeah, it's been 2 years since we first met each other in JCI Genk. And we are here at the C-Mine Crib in Genk.
Yeah, close to home.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely.
And for the audience, of course, I know Bart already, but Bart, could you please introduce yourself and
Absolutely.
Tell them what you do?
Yes. So I'm the founder of Kwarts since 5 years, working on data-driven marketing and sales. In fact, I've been working first as a consultant in Kwarts on my own, then onboarded multiple team members doing some consultancy projects, and recently transformed the business into a product company, attracted a co-founder, and currently we are scaling up and making the product a success, let's say.
Yeah. And yeah, I've been following it closely behind the scenes, I'd say, because obviously we know each other privately as well. But what the interesting question would be is that how did you end up founding your company? Where did it all start? Who or what planted the seed in your mind?
Well, we go back to 2009 when I graduated as a commercial engineer. Then first worked in traditional companies like Orange, Luminous, where I was responsible for launching marketing campaigns, being active as a project manager, in fact, and seeing all this exciting stuff happening with the agencies, and I wanted to be part of it. I had some consultancy past before that, so I wanted really to go back to consultancy, being in the eye of the storm, and working on big data within marketing and sales. But of course, back in 2009 when I graduated, it was not like a very famous concept, the big data thing. So I did a postgraduate in big data and analytics at KU Leuven. And in the meanwhile, also for clients, launching my business, Kwarts, and for clients in the meanwhile, applying the concepts that I learned back then. And then gradually, we have built our methodology, increasing the team size, working on from smaller to larger projects, and at a certain point, we've kind of developed our own methodology, and increasingly clients were asking for, can you standardize this into a product, because we want to prevent building dependencies on consultancy projects. So at the time, in 2019, started working on a concept for a customer engagement navigator, to say. And in that perspective, the whole story started.
Yeah, so you've been around for about how many years now? 6, 7?
For 5 years and a half with Kwarts. So after my career first as an employee for multiple companies, I've launched the business Kwarts. In the meanwhile, did my postgraduate in big data analytics, and then applying the learnings for the first clients. This led to interesting insights, also and interesting, very interesting discussion points with clients, because the theory is always interesting, but on the other hand, there is the practice, and data quality is one of the big issues that companies are still dealing with today. And basically what was our USP in the market is the pragmatism behind data science. So really checking like what data assets are available and how can we come up with logical answers to business questions without over-engineering it.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is you went from being actually a service-oriented company, a typical consulting agency, to now making the shift to a real product-based company, a SaaS vendor, if I can call it that. And was it purely the insights you get from clients, or the requests you're getting from clients, like, we want a product because what you're doing is fantastic, but we want it to scale in a product, we need more of this? Or was it also something in the market that you identified? Where did this come from? Could be a mix probably, but could you elaborate on that? What made you transform your company from services to product?
Well, really interesting question. Last week we were on a team building, and I gave like an insight on the history of Kwarts for the last 5 years. And in fact, the product idea was already in the initial business plan. So bridging silos between the sales and marketing with building data bridges, that was already active in the business plan. But then, as from a certain point, our prospects, where we sent proposals for doing data-driven projects, they were asking proactively, isn't there a tool available where we can monitor and change and switch parameters, and can't we use a flexible tool to do our data-driven actions in? So there was a clear need in the market for bridging knowledge from sales towards marketing, towards medical in the life science industry. And that has led us to develop the product that we are currently developing, being a customer data platform. Working together with academics from Hasselt University on customer journey analytics, gave it also the technological backbone from an AI perspective to really bring the innovation in it.
And you mentioned the product a few times. I'm guessing that people at home are very eager to know what the platform actually is about. Can you elaborate a bit more? Maybe give your elevator pitch so that people can understand what is it that Kwarts now will put in the market.
Well, basically, our product enables life science companies in particular, that's our focus market, to build better relationships with healthcare professionals. So today, healthcare professionals are being addressed by a multitude of channels, and it's not always logical to understand, or not always easy to understand for a pharmaceutical sales rep, for example, when should I use which communication channel. And oftentimes in the last 10 to 20 years, when talking about multi-channel, people look into value potential, for example, to decide which channel investment is worth the bang for the buck. But then you forget the preference of a client, because a client might have a totally different preference. So what do we build? We, based on all the touch points that we have on an individual healthcare professional from the past, and that data can come from CRM systems, from marketing automation systems, even external data sources like IQVIA, for example, is heavily used by the industry to define how important is a physician or a pharmacist. And what we then do is we cross all these insights. We build a 360-degree view of the customer, and then we define the next best action to undertake to make this customer more engaged with the brand that you are talking about, or with the product mix that you are talking about. And basically, this next best action, it's a concept that has been gaining popularity the last several years. And what differentiates us from all those other customer data platforms out there, because there are plenty of them, but so many of them are B2C oriented. We are really B2B oriented with high complexity sales. So you have multiple stakeholders, customer hierarchies that range from a physician, for example, working in a hospital. You need to sell more products to the hospital, but first you need to get approved by the medical board. And then the question is, which physicians do you try to influence? Maybe there are some nurses, maybe there's a hospital pharmacist. But who has which influence in the total decision-making process? And that's what our platform is detecting, like where do you need to act, which customers are your immediate priority, and then also what is their preference pattern from the past. And there we act a bit like in chess. In chess you think multiple steps ahead. If I would ask you what would be the most useful tactic to make you more enthusiastic about what I'm telling, I could take you out for dinner in the Kristallijn here in Genk, which would be a really nice experience. You would be very positive tonight, but if I ask you in 3 weeks' time, would you like to buy licenses for a product? You might probably say, no, I don't know enough yet. So maybe it's better to just have a small talk right here. You might be not too enthusiastic today, but if I then send a sequence of actions, then in the end we are going to get to the point that you buy that license. And maybe if your reactions are not what I have expected, that would mean that I need to change my strategy. And in fact, what our platform does is all of this automatically, but not only learning from your own experience with a certain customer, but also with the experience of a colleague you might not even know, because we centralize all data points.
You bring it all together.
And we take this experience data in. And to do that, we've built a very good relationship with academics, with the University of Hasselt. And it's a technique called process mining. It comes from the industry 4.0, where you try to really map each step in the process with a timestamp. And in fact, the customer journey is nothing else than a series of timestamped actions. And you want to get an insight into these timestamped actions. And that's what we industrialize at scale to define better journeys.
And it's very interesting because at Dignify, we're almost on the other side of the spectrum, but coming very close to what you're saying. because we use those insights to then perform the actions. And this brings us to my next question, because we're talking about marketing automation. What's the link between what you're doing and marketing automation? So you provide the insights, the recommendations, and next best actions. And does marketing automation, so technology there, take over to execute on that, or how do you see it? How do you integrate with these type of platforms?
One of the important points in our development, ever since we started, even in our company, ever since we started, is the voice of our own clients. And we try to capture market feedback. And I must say that after a few months of building our MVP product, we had a discussion with a few clients, and one of the things that came out was like, it's a really interesting application to define next best actions, but how can we put this into practice if this is a different system than the one that I'm using as a sales rep? Most sales reps in the pharmaceuticals, they are working with either Viva CRM or Salesforce CRM or maybe IQVIA OCE. But the point there is like, how could you use the same system and still get these insights in? And that's basically one of our key USPs today, is a fluent integration with Salesforce. So we have hired Salesforce developers to really integrate our components into the existing front end of a Salesforce, of a Viva, so that the sales doesn't need to leave the environment anymore. And even more to say is that there's always a big battle between man and machine. Like it seems to be a battle between man and machine, but it's not the case. Man and machine need to collaborate together and make each other smarter, in the sense that a machine can only learn based on what you throw into the machine.
Yeah, the input you provide.
Yeah, indeed. And then the point is, if you as a sales rep see that this recommendation is really useless, it's not a good recommendation, then you can blame the machine, or you can think, how could I interact with the machine and give this feedback to the engines? And that's what we also enable, is we have a feedback mechanism where we then can apply reinforcement learning, so that
so you can basically make it smarter by providing your feedback to say, this was relevant, this worked, this didn't work, maybe there's some insight that the machine cannot know about, and you can put it in manually as a feedback loop. So it learns on both ways. So it learns by itself, but also from human input.
And it's semi-manual in the sense that you can indicate it's the right message, but not the right channel, and so on. And we capture this feedback immediately, and the recommendations get better as you go. So it's a collaboration exercise, and it's also taking all channels. It's not that we are going into a fully online way of doing business, not at all. We are remaining an offline focused business, especially in high complexity sales. But it's important that every interaction can be suggested, but also every interaction can be logged. With marketing automation, it's not so difficult, because you have a click and an open rate, and everything is nicely logged into a system. But what if you, in a physical conversation, have a discussion with a healthcare professional? It might be that you need to log your key messages and the reactions to those key messages. But then you can wonder, why should I do this admin as a sales? Because I don't.
That's usually an issue for salespeople, right?
So focusing on that point, so in fact, we have made a comparison with Spotify. Maybe you have a Spotify account. So every Monday morning, I'm happy because there's new music in my Discover Weekly. And then the point is, if your kids, I don't have kids personally, but sometimes it happens that I put like, how do you say, fotomuziek or wrong music on. And then the week after, I blame myself because my recommendations are
they get messed up.
Are crappy. So the same principle goes with a sales rep. If a sales rep suddenly sees like, okay, my recommendations are crappy, well, maybe I should do better logging because I will be assisted by the system in a better way. So how can you prevent that a bad recommendation comes out? Sometimes it's also looking at the data quality, but how do you make somebody out in the field aware about the importance of this fact? It's by giving instant feedback, giving instant feedback on a good recommendation, and then you can make that work.
And the thing I see a lot of companies struggle with is everybody wants to embrace AI, right? And the world of AI, which you're active in, of course, but the thing that they don't want usually is to give up control, right? And how do you handle that? Because the output of your platform are recommendations, right?
There's one magical button, and that's perform action. You decide to click it. So you're always in control. And if you say, I neglect this recommendation, system learns as well. So the sales is always in control. That's an important starting principle. And then another important point is that sales is just one department. The customer is being addressed by marketing as well, by medical
Customer
science
service.
reps. Plenty of people are interacting, customer service as well, finance even for the invoice. But how do you orchestrate all these actions nicely together? By, first of all, the story that I brought before is the fact that you integrate all data points of this individual client, and then you can spit it out to sales, to marketing, and marketing typically has a more aggregated view. So there we are working to micro segments with similar interaction behavior instead of the traditional customer personas. Where you can also do useful exercises, but then you still have to do the job of mapping a customer with the correct persona segment. Well, we can go much more granular than that.
You can go on individual level rather than segment-based or persona-based. And I think what you do with your product, what you can do with the integration of marketing automation is, you have a salesperson who's talking to somebody offline, right, in person, and what you want is after you get home, or after they leave the conversation, you want them to be still excited and in a day, 2 days, 3 weeks, and that's where you can automate that and reinforce the message that you brought personally via email, via other channels. And I think if I can bring it back to a personal story, we had a football game last Saturday, right? And there were some tough tackles, I can say, and this guy sitting right beside me, there was one tackle from you that I remember as well.
And it hurt myself as well.
Almost went to the hospital, which was actually across the street almost. So if I would go to the hospital, right, and they take a picture or MRI scan of my ankle, they would then know. It's a different story, but I would appreciate it if they would contact me afterwards via text message or whatever, instead of me having to go back to the doctor to get that personal conversation. So I think it's a different context, but it's the same story that you can really take into account personal preferences, but also what matters to me. For some people, it could matter that they want to go to the doctor and speak to them personally to get their input, but for me, I just want to know, is it broken or not?
It's a very interesting point that you raise, because today it's not possible to do, at least for prescription medicines, direct-to-patient communications, and even for non-prescription, you hear all the little voices and messages on television when you see a pub for an ad for whatever common cold product. So today the customers that we address for life science companies are healthcare practitioners, are the B2B level customers. Going directly to the patient indeed can also add relevant. The principle I agree with, but the level of going towards the patient directly, today already it's causing some discussions, and how can companies be in touch with patients, typically via a white labeled patient platform where you try to build a connection, try to build
communities.
some affinity, communities. But the point here is, like, what is ethically correct? Is it an ethical question, or is it just a regulatory question? Because you might be willing to share your health details to be addressed in a more personalized way, but today with the regulations it's not possible, and for logical reasons, because prescription medicine has some risks if you use it in combination with other medicines. But on the other hand, there's also a need for more personalized communication. So I expect this topic to be like a hot topic in the coming years, is how can we really operationalize that one?
I think it will be a tough nut to crack. We have some clients in healthcare as well, and everybody's talking about, they call it B2B2C, right? Because you want to have that connection with the patient directly, but also the patient can benefit from these customized experiences, right? If you are a patient, you have, for example, diabetes, and I'm a company that sells these type of products, well, I would appreciate if the company that makes these type of products would give me their input as well. How should I use it? If there are certain things they can see from the data, maybe keeping me up to date with new developments of the products. These things, they typically go through the hospitals or the doctors they see, but it would be good to have the direct relation. So I think people are willing to give their information if they can benefit from it. I think that's a story, not just in healthcare, but in every market there is. It's something we just have to take into account. And it's very interesting what you're building, and I've seen a few things already. So it's very exciting, and hopefully if anyone is excited as me, reach out to Bart. We will put his details at the end of this video as well, to see a product demo or to get some more information. But it brings you to the next point. If you would be able to go forward in the future for 3 years, where would you want to be with Kwarts?
Yeah. Well, in fact, we are gearing up the business as we speak. Ruben de Moor, my co-founder, he just joined on board as well. Kwarts today is not the same company than Kwarts 2 years ago. We've transformed our business, as mentioned already, from consultancy to product. It also means that where in the past I was bootstrapping a lot by bringing in interim consultancy revenues to pay the bill, to pay the development so far, but building a product company, it's not possible when you just try to bootstrap based on services, because what you then tend to do is build something really specific to certain clients, or build something that is just not good enough to make it to the corporate
something you can sell
sales.
as a project probably that you built.
Sorry?
Right? You build something that you can probably, or that you've sold as a project, rather than just focusing on the product that you're going to put in the market.
Yeah, and we're trying to build an enterprise-grade product, and you can try to build that with limited means, but you won't succeed, so you need more means to do that. So one of the things that we are currently doing is closing our first funding round, so that's already kind of an upcoming news item. Ruben being on board also brings us to a next level with very life science specific experience also, but also a strategic experience coming from Bain & Company, having worked for KPMG, IQVIA. It's kind of a person who knows the drill, and that's also noticeable. Other than that, what is important is that we build out a product team or commercial team in a product-oriented way, which is different than a consultancy business where developers are not quite of resources you might think of. It's rather you want to have like project managers, you want to have some data scientists, and that's our biggest battle today, is how do we shift our thinking towards a product business with development timelines, with product roadmaps. And of course, this is an exercise where you are being challenged by investors internally in the company as well, because people have different expectations today. So many challenges ahead. Where do we see ourselves in 2 or 3 years' time? Not in Belgium alone.
Is that Benelux or Europe?
World. We have a product that is, it can quickly go big in the sense that a product such as a CDP, this decision is not taken on the local level. Oftentimes it's not taken on the local level. It's oftentimes taken at regional level or even worldwide level. But the question is, of course, how do you build credibility in that market? And that's an exercise that's taking efforts. And currently we are doing all these efforts to prove our right and to prove the fact that we have something really strong in the business. Then afterwards, in 2-3 years' time, we have some objectives to go to the next funding round, and it will be another.
And as a predominantly healthcare still, or do you see other industries tapping into your platform as well?
Today the focus is in life sciences. Why? Because we feel that life science market is a very specific market, and we have some specific skills to serve that market. So that's an important reason why. Also, secondly, the healthcare market is today transforming towards a more personalized way of doing things, and also towards more digital maturity. And that's important. So other industries could come in at some point, but they need to have a certain digital maturity. If you don't have a CRM system, if you don't have a marketing automation system, and you have only limited data silos, then it makes no sense adding a tool that connects data silos. So we need to come in at the right point, and this lead qualification will be key for us. But we believe that a sector focus is important, because there's nothing as frustrating as somebody walking in and knowing nothing about your business, so we want to prevent that.
Okay, so if I can summarize, in a few years' time you want to be the #1 global CDP for the life sciences industry in B2B.
I think that's not an understatement. That's a clear ambition.
Okay, very excited, and I'll for sure be following up on this. Which brings us to the end of the conversation. Thank you, Bart. And thanks to the audience for listening. If you have any questions about this episode for myself, for Bart, or about future episodes that you want us to cover, send an email to maconversation at dignify.be, and hopefully see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.